Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is selling the exact same game over and over and over again, expecting different review scores. Now that is crazy. And I don't know, the first time they did this, I thought they were me. So, boom, I bought it. But then I started seeing everywhere I look, all of these game companies selling the exact same game over and over and over again, expecting shit to change. I fucking hate Ubisoft. The only reason they still make so much money is because there are people who decide if they want to buy a game or not based off of one single trailer that they see on YouTube. Hey, it's the guy from Breaking Bad. Am I gatekeeping video games? No, of course not. I'm fully aware there are plenty of people who actually like the way Ubisoft are still making their games. Also, don't let anyone tell you how to spend your money, especially not me. I've wasted my money and am still wasting it on a lot of shit. There are just certain publishers and developers that piss me off a whole lot more than certain other ones. One of them being Ubisoft, who are gatekeeping certain things. What, you might wonder? Well, how about their own fucking video games? Now on top of that, add a lot of useless microtransactions, time savers, and pre-order bonuses that could feed a family of 4 for an entire month, and you have a perfect recipe for a complete shithousery of a company. However, I don't care about any of that shit today. The only thing I want to do is see how Far Cry 3 holds up after all of these years, because this game was a huge part of my childhood. Let's go.
Hey, over here!
You guys shut the fuck up!
Holy fuck, he's dead.
What? How did that kill him?
That is what they teach you in the army.
What? How to knock someone out with a piece of bamboo? It's funny how after so many years certain things are just ingrained in my mind, but others have been completely erased. For example, I obviously still knew that this dude was named Dennis. However, I had forgotten how much of a menace to society Dennis actually was. Within the first 5 minutes of meeting him, he has sexually assaulted me physically.
You are weak. Well, not all of you.
Sexually assaulted the village women verbally.
I could have anyone I choose.
And turned not only Bambi but also his twin brother into a tomato paste. I had also forgotten how edgy Dennis was.
Society has taught you how to fail, not nature.
Or in how many riddles he spoke.
So you'll help me?
No, you can only help yourself. I'm going to free you.
PC culture would love Dennis. Be happy you're stuck on that island, brother, because the Western world will eat you alive. Anyways, Far Cry wouldn't be Far Cry without those goddamn radio towers. I mention them now as it's quite literary, the first mission the game gives you, but I had also forgotten why Far Cry 3 is the only open world game, let alone Ubisoft game, in which I did not hate doing these things. When you reach the top and unlock the surrounding area's markers, it doesn't show you what you've unlocked. What's over there? Who knows? Go and see for yourself. I'm aware I can still open the map and take a look, but this adds a bit of exploration and a whole lot less of hand-holding, which is two of the main mechanics games often fail at nowadays. After taking revenge on the snake that jump scared me when I was 14, I continued with some of the outposts, side activities and collectibles. It already bothered me back in 2012 that Jason went from
I've never shot anyone before.
to mindless slaughter within the span of 2 hours, but truth be told, the farther I got into the game, the more I realized that the writing was a bit all over the place anyways. Don't get me wrong, the voice actors are great. They delivered their lines with humor and wit.
Something tells me there's one more piece of the door code nearby. It's because I'm a Pisces, I know it.
But also emotional rawness.
They come and they blindside you every fucking time.
It's just that the writing is sometimes a bit edgy.
Jason, whoever did this, whoever killed Grant, deserves to die.
It really has its ups and downs though, as all in all the game is obviously very well written and even pretty funny. As I'm discriminated against by apartheid, not quite time for Africa. And Africa is still waiting any day now, right? Oh fuck. After meeting the second sexual predator in the game,
Girl must live. You and me both.
I wandered off into some nearby caves to start my drug addiction. Like most people who try LSD for the first time, Jason had an out-of-body experience, automatically leading to the part where he realizes for the first time he was molested and starts getting flashbacks. Oh god, is that Dennis? Don't let him stand behind you. I had honestly forgotten how much there was to do in this game. Side quests, hunting, assassination missions, delivering medicine. Got your package! Oh. You can tell who taught Jason how to drive. I tend to shit on Ubisoft's game design quite a lot, but one thing I gotta hand to them is how you can approach every mission and outpost however you please. There are scripted events, sure, but 90% of the time they just tell you go and do the thing, and you just have to figure it out yourself. If missions turn to shit, you don't feel the need to reload the save or try again. Just roll with it and see what happens. What I also really liked is how the game explains how you can use skills, upgrade ammo capacity, pouches, etc. and after that completely ignores this part of the game. That's no sarcasm, by the way. If you want to rush the story and ignore all of this shit, you can. But if you want to try and turn Jason into the Terminator, you can also do that. Now, obviously, Far Cry 3 got some flack back in the day, as Far Cry 2 was very beloved by fans for things like its survival elements, a continuous search for medication, having to manually map everything out yourself. Far Cry 3, compared to that stuff, obviously took a step down, and with a step down I mean fell down the stairs. And yeah, if you ask me, I also would have liked to see more survival type of elements and hardcore. Instead of this Rambo-esque type of running and gunning, blow everything up type of gameplay. The more you progress through the story, the less fun the fights become, which sounds counterintuitive, right? Because the more weapons and skills you unlock, the more fun the game should be. Well, yeah, it should, but all of these weapons and skills make the game a lot easier. You go from carefully planning out every fight and being scared shitless of the enemy to just walking by things and thinking, yeah, I guess I can blow that up if I really want. You could argue that this perfectly ties in with the story, as Jason starts off as a little bitch but ends up being the warrior his tribe and his friends need him to be, but we all know that that's not true. The real reason is obviously that Ubisoft was aiming for a broader audience, like a more casual type of gamer, instead of like the 40 people that liked Far Cry 2. Speaking of the old Ubisoft and older games in general, the game hasn't aged all that well. With bad hitboxes and enemies spawning out of thin air, you need all the help you can get. The AI also tends to do some funky things from time to time. Jesus! Who taught you how to drive? Never mind, I think I already know the answer.
Not all of you.
They also kill themselves from time to time. Also, I experienced insane frame drops that were on the border of game breaking, that I had to resolve by turning off one of my CPU cores. It's not the end of the world, just annoying. But hey, the game is old, so you can't expect too much. With that being said, I respect the amount of freedom Ubisoft has given us with Far Cry 3. Not only with the whole approach outpost however you please, but also that you can get kinda crazy with free running and climbing. But also weapon customization. If 90% of your game consists of shooting people, you have to make sure the shooting is fun. I've always had fond memories of them, especially the shotguns and the snipers in this game. Going back, I can confirm that, yeah, they're still a blast. Or maybe I'm just imagining it as Jason turned into just as much of a menace to society as Dennis is by the halfway point of the game. I'll bring it back, promise. They all folded. You can't just take all of their chips if they've folded. Sorry. The activities are fun and all, but it's still a checklist type of gaming. But even I have to admit that even though I remembered this game as quite repetitive, they did everything they could to make sure every activity is as diverse as possible compared to all of the other ones. Jesus. Hunting is a bit chaotic, yeah, but truth be told, what would you rather do? Actually sit down for hours looking at the same single spot, waiting for the animal to appear, or just run and gun them down? Same goes for water animals. There's no bait, nor a way to lure them to shore, so you have to get a bit creative to kill them. What had escaped my mind though was that if you did all of the upgrades, you unlock a special hunting mission for an alpha animal. But as the hunting essentially boils down to just murder every animal you come across, you reach these missions fairly quickly. It's comparable to how the game never tells you that you can plant C4 charges on walls or vehicles to later detonate them whenever you please. I like that. It leaves some room for creativity, instead of just doing what the game tells you to do every time. What's funny though is how after going through the game again after all of these years, the memories that are now the most vivid to me are those of random stuff happening in the jungle, and not the outposts or the side quests. Things like randomly stumbling onto a tiger while having no weapons or ammo left except for C4 explosives. Or using your car for cover after getting ambushed by the enemy. Or barrel rolling down a mountain only to end up barely surviving as I crashed into a river instead of a tree or a road, only to then be eaten by an alligator. Far Cry 3 has that special something where shit just goes from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds. And I'm sure it's the nostalgia talking, but I don't really remember any of these moments happening to me in Far Cry 4, New Dawn, 5, etc. Maybe because I was a bit older when they came out, or maybe because the story wasn't as interesting. I don't know. The point is that the last Far Cry I played besides this one was Far Cry 5. I can't remember anything from that game. Well, I played it like, I don't know, a year or two ago. And that's only speaking of the outposts and events, let alone the story. Speaking of stories, after being drugged about 20 times again, I'm having a deja vu. It was time to get some outside help, namely from Willis, who, by the way, is a real baller. Great character, who helped me find my friend Oliver. Ollie has a severe drug addiction, so I automatically understand why Jason is so fond of him. Now that we're on the topic of drugs again, I'm beginning to think the entire island is having withdrawal effects with how much everyone is shaking all over the place. Even if you didn't like Willis, you can't deny he's the man responsible for giving you one of the most, if not the most, fun mission in Far Cry history.
Flammenwerfer.
It's pronounced Flammenwerfer. Oh well. This shit was so dope back in the day, and it's still really fun. Speaking of fun, unlike Jason, I had completely erased this game's sexual predator number 3 from my mind. Meet Buck. The man who's responsible for enlarging Keith's derriere from the size of a nut to a watermelon. Now that he has refreshed my mind, I gotta say, I like Buck.
No, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, mate. Get the fuck up! Come on! You found my prize yet?
Truth be told, this entire treasure hunt for a knife has been completely erased from my mind. So was the knife fight with Buck, which is kinda weird if I vividly remember the other quick time events from the game. Anyways, unlike the other predators in this game, at least he admits that he's a weirdo.
Keith needs me.
Buck wasn't the only one I had forgotten about though. I also completely forgot about Keith, like his entire existence. If the writers tried to start off at the best one and progressively aim down from there, they nailed it. As the only decent people from this group were Grant and Daisy, and everyone I met after that has done nothing except for complain and cry.
I helped Steve.
Oh, look, I don't want to talk about your exes right now.
Oh well. Now that we found all of them, it was time to take our revenge on Voss again.
I'm coming for you, boss.
After 10 years, I'm sure everything that could have been said about my commando's performance has already been said, but even if it wasn't... Surprise, motherfucker! Mwah, absolute perfection. Back in 2012, I never understood why they killed Voss off so early in the game, only to let Hoyt take over as the main bad guy. However, now that I'm older, and have accumulated a lot more wisdom and new sorts of perspectives on life, I think that I finally have an answer to that question. Namely, I still don't have a clue. Oh. Or actually, I do. The longer you play the game, the more you start realizing that Jason really hated his old life. Dating a girl he didn't care about, having friends he couldn't relate to whatsoever. On top of that, he lived his entire life in the shadow of his brother, who was essentially way more successful than he was. A military man who had a lot of money and a better girlfriend than Jason did. Not that that's all that difficult. You had to read through character logs, do some side activities, optional interactions to figure all of this stuff out. The writing wasn't so in your face as most games do nowadays, because they're just because they're scared that you're just too stupid to understand what they were aiming for. Foss was the man who forced you to leave your old life, to stop becoming the old Jason that was a pussy and who had to embrace this newer side of him in which he actually became who he needed and wanted to be. In a weird way, he was once you. Foss was the man who forced you to leave your old life, which is why in his final moments he keeps saying,
The world is on a diagonal. I am the balancing point.
what balancing point? The last hurdle that Jason needs to cross before he starts his new life. If he doesn't kill Foss and escapes with his friends, he essentially has to go back to a life that he hates. But if he does kill Foss and kills Hoyt, he finally becomes who he needs to be. Now this may be very obvious to some, at least it's now obvious to me, but when I played this when I was 14, the only thing I knew was that Hoyt was boring and Foss was cool, so I didn't really understand. But now I do. Time for the second island. But before we continue, first a word from our sponsor.
Who do you work for? Willis sent me. How is he?
So, new island, new me, right? Well, not really. You're still gonna be doing the same outposts, climbing the same towers, fighting the same enemies, slaughtering the same animals, seeing the same drug withdrawals.
You might want to check on Lisa before you go.
Only now you have a wingsuit, which is great for skipping radio towers by the way, and a bunch of new weapons to do it with. Yes. And honestly, I'm kinda taking back my words from the previous island. Jason stopped being a little bitch, and I had to do the same. The days of creeping around the place avoiding the enemies were over. It was time to go ballistic on Hoyt and his men. You want me to fuck shit up? Alright, I'll fuck shit up. Everything just feels so smooth about this game. By now I'm sure nostalgia plays a role, but the way cars handle from the weapon switching to the animations overall, everything just feels right. I could do this for hours. That still doesn't take away that I get kinda bored whenever I do this in other Ubisoft games though, but this one just has something that makes me keep playing it without getting bored. Anyways, the missions on the second island are just as fun as on the first one. If you thought things went boom a lot on the first island, you haven't seen anything yet. Dicking around with Sam was pretty fun. I would have liked to see more from him. He also felt like the only AI in the entire game that wasn't brain dead. Here he was waiting for fire to go out before actually charging forward, which already made him more competent than all of the other people I met in this game combined. By now the island had taken the better of Jason unfortunately. After a few days of experiencing and witnessing sexual assault, he decided to go full S&M on his own little brother. Even Sam thought that was a bit too kinky for his liking.
I need a drink.
Unfortunately, the two of us bit off a bit more than we could chew, and obviously Hoyt figured out our plans. But hey, now that we have accepted and embraced our new life as a Terminator, Hoyt wasn't much of a challenge anymore. 80% of the game and its missions are spent on the first island. Ever since arriving on the second island, you can race through the rest of the story in like 2 hours. After that, the only thing that was left to do was to confront Citra and to choose. Choose if I wanted to return to my crappy old life, or embrace my new life as a warrior. I feel like Far Cry 3 was the game in the series, or just for Ubisoft in general, that started their entire obsession with these everything goes wrong and has to explode type of missions. Which isn't bad, by the way, it's just an observation. They're fun, there's just a lot of them. I feel like the farther down the road the Far Cry games we've gone, the worse the stories have become. Don't get me wrong, Far Cry 3 also has some questionable things going on.
Be careful. Don't you have something to do?
But it still easily has the strongest story out of all of them. Like, yeah, Jason is a bit of a moron from time to time, and from all of your friends, the only useful one is Daisy. All of the other ones are just annoying and panicky and useless, but that's to be expected, right? You're a group of teenagers, or like in your early 20s, and you're stranded on an island, being captured and sold off into slavery by pirates. Like, how would you react? But yeah, they need you to fix their shit, but they also don't like what you are becoming. They can't accept the fact that you are changing and finally becoming the person that you want to be and need to be. Becoming that person requires major sacrifice, which makes them the only part of your old life that's still holding you back. Which is why at the end of the game you have to choose between becoming the new you fully or still clinging on to your old life and not changing whatsoever. Holy shit, that just got deep. If you're curious what I chose to save my friends. All of this talk about becoming a warrior, finding my path, my destiny, and still I return to my old, uninteresting life? Well, yes. But the path of a warrior is, in my opinion, just as much about protecting others as it is to do whatever you please and whatever you deem is right. Our friends are innocent in this scenario, and they do not deserve to suffer because we are trying to figure our lives out. All in all, going back to this game was incredibly fun, truly a great experience. The story, now that I understand more of it, hits even deeper after all of these years. The gameplay is still addictive, the writing is great, the content extensive. I highly recommend anyone to try the same as me. See how Far Cry 3 holds up compared to the newer entries in the series, because I still like this entry the most out of the entire franchise. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.